Okay, boys, so you've been looking at two stories about Hannibal crossing the Alps. This first one, a short pep talk, and then the second one, crossing the Alps. I am going to go through the translation of a short pep talk just to give you a bit of an introduction, and then you are in charge of translating crossing the Alps. You were looking up indirect statements within these stories, so make sure you follow along, you figure out exactly where I'm getting my translation from, and also that you've picked up on those indirect statements. There are actually two little sneaky indirect statements, I think, in this story that I didn't spot at first, but we will come to those when we come to them and translate them accordingly. Okay, so we start off, pretty straightforward sentence. Hannibal was now preparing to cross the Alps. The Carthaginians, however, were fearing, and then you've got two ets here, so you don't just translate them as and, were fearing both the enemy and iter, the journey. Okay. Hannibal, therefore, and then we've got a nice deponent verb here. It looks perfect passive, but it's just perfect active because it's deponent. So Hannibal, therefore, encouraged them is eos, and then sic is the same as iter. It means in this way. Eos there is masculine accusative plural because it's talking about his men. So we just translate it as them. So Hannibal encouraged them, therefore, in this way. Let's hear what he says. He's got a lot of indirect statements to say. So we have a verb of knowing, believing, saying, declaring, etc. An accusative, an infinitive, and then we've got a semicolon, we talked about those before, and another accusative and an infinitive. Okay, so we'll just do these two to begin with. So soldiers, I know that you, vikise, have conquered hostes, the enemy, for many years, and then semper means always, so we could squeeze that in a bit earlier on so it sounds a bit nicer. So I know that you have always conquered the enemy for many years. And then when we're hit with this semicolon, we put in another that. There's no verb this time, there's no skio. Skio's already been put in the first bit, so we just kind of have to assume that that's being used again. So, and that, vos, you, have overcome, have saipe, have often overcome mountains and dangers. Okay. Then we've got a new verb, video, and we've got an accusative and an infinitive. Now the infinitives in the previous sentence were both perfect tense. They ended in isse, which is why we translated them as have conquered and have overpowered. This one here, habere, is just a present infinitive. So I see that you have weapons, food, and thick military cloaks. Sagum, you can see in the vocab there is a neuter noun, that's why it's got that little italic N next to it. So saga is going to be neuter plural. Okay, and then another one, right? Now nullum is our first accusative and tangere is our infinitive, but nullum means not any or no, so it's an adjective, so we need a noun to agree with it. So it isn't just nullum that's our accusative here, it's nullum montem. So puto, I think that no mountain, tangere, present infinitive, touches the sky. Okay? Next one. Here we go again. Accusative, adjective, and noun. And then this time a perfect infinitive, ascendisse. I hear that many men, antea, before, ascendisse, have climbed the Alps with their children and with their wives. They're both ablatives. They're liberis and uxoribus. Okay, remember the quay, we jump forward, so the quay is kind of theoretically going to go here, and then you translate it as children and wives. Okay, nonne, surely soldiers can do the same. Possunt facere idem. Remember, idem means the same. Surely soldiers can do the same. Ferentes is a present participle because it's got nt in the middle. So surely soldiers can do the same, carrying weapons. Okay. unless you want the name of the Carthaginians, poenorum, genitive plural there. Deleri is a passive infinitive. It's a passive infinitive. You can tell that from its RI rather than its RE on the end. So unless you want the name of the Carthaginians to be destroyed. Now here are the two sneaky little indirect statements. They are mean because credite is an imperative, so you don't immediately think, all right, it's another indirect statement. But you have got vos accusative, fere infinitive. And we'll deal with the second part of that in a minute. So credite, trust that. Vos, you carry everything. So omnia, a on the end is neuter plural. So literally all neuter plural things. So everything. Trust that you carry everything. Now, the next little bit says everything to do, to be able. Now, you might think, right, well, omnia is the accusative and posse is the infinitive, but then it would be that everything can do. And it can't be can be done because facere isn't a passive infinitive, it's an active infinitive. So instead, very, very sneakily, we have to use this vos here again. So he's still talking to his men, telling them that this is what they can do. So the whole phrase then is believe that you carry everything, that you can do everything. Okay? And that is mean because it's a case of working out what would make most sense there. Okay, so that is a sneaky little tiny group of indirect statements just to confuse you at the last hurdle. Okay, you are now in charge of crossing the Alps. Treacherous local guides and hostile inhabitants make the ascent of the Alps difficult, but the elephants prove useful and the Carthaginians are finally rewarded with a prospect of Italy. So if you're on the side of the Romans, this is not good news, but if you're on the side of the Carthaginians and Dido's descendants, then this is good news. Also, it's quite exciting because elephants are involved. So yeah, using the information that you've gathered about the indirect statements in this story, okay, translate this passage. Make sure that you are checking when there is an indirect statement. Watch out for semicolons because then you're going to be saying and that. And watch out for the word se, because remember, se quite often appears in an indirect statement, as in se. I can see one right there already. And that in an indirect statement refers, well, actually in any situation, refers to whoever is doing the verb. Okay, so if it's a man who's doing the verb, se will mean he. If it's a woman, it will mean she. And if it's a thing, it will mean it. Okay, so just consider that before you start translating. Also, if you don't feel totally 100% entirely confident that you're going to get every single indirect statement flawlessly translated, which I think is probably all of you because they are really difficult, make sure you follow with the rules that we've set out in our books. So make sure you're finding the verb, putting in that. A few of you are forgetting to put in the word that, and it kind of screws everything else up. Gets a bit confusing. So make sure you pop that in there as well. And then think about the tenses of those infinitives. So remember, if your verb is originally in the past, you need to think about how your infinitive is going to go back a tense. If it's not, don't put it back a tense. That'll be a mistake. Okay? Right, boys, as you can see, I've got to go because I've got another lesson. But yeah, good luck with this story. Keep me updated and we will go through it on Skype.